All right, all you beautiful legends, we're going to get right into it with issue number 6, and it's going to conclude my story times with Derrz. This first part going over the Spawn Origins trade covering issues 1 through 6. We're going to start, and it's going to open up right with that cover image where you have Overkill, who you're going to meet in just a second, standing over a Spawn. And then we flash over to the first page, and you have this nice one-page spread with a building getting crumpled, and it says, Sicily. The morning routines are interrupted by an unscheduled demolition. However, it comes as no surprise to this Italian island business district. In fact, all parties concerned were giving nearly an hour's notice. The message is clear: mess with the mafia and they will mess you up. So basically saying something's going on with some business, the mob's involved, the mafia's involved, and something happened that they had to tear down this building. And then as we flash to the final page, it says all they needed was their one-man wrecking crew. And then he's standing there with the blown up building. He's like, I love this job. And it just says Overkill. In whispered voices, some call him Overkill. It has to do with his tendency to go beyond the necessary means. And this is another one of my favorite characters from the Spawn universe. This dude's an absolute monster when it comes to fighting and taking damage and dealing out damage. And he gets in a couple skirmishes with Spawn. And what's nice is if you're currently reading Scorch or followed Spawn's universe, he starts out as kind of a bad guy, but he definitely becomes one of the good guys. As he emerges wrath-like from the flames and destruction, his name becomes an understatement. He's done his job, now it's time to go home. And you have the army standing there, they're saying, he's still coming, fire, and they're just unloading on him. And it says the army has dealt with Overkill in the past, that's why they've arrived with enough firepower to engage an enemy battalion. Today's engagement, though, is also a few sandwiches short of a picnic. Overkill cannot be damaged. And they're just basically standing there, and they're just all freaking out and panicked, and they're like, now what? And it cuts to Overkill, and he's like, try running, which is a good call. And he jumps up in the air, basically slams down, says, too slow. To the Mafia, this is the perfect employee, one that does his job with enthusiasm. Service with a smile. What more could you ask from a hitman? And he's like, get out of here before I get mad. And like I said, they encountered this guy before, so they kind of know what they're up against. So they said, hurry, get the cannon into position. Sergeant, that thing can take out 2 city blocks. Better hit him the first time. And then basically it cuts to this next panel where you see it getting destroyed. And it says the point becomes moot as Overkill leaps high into the air. It comes crashing down directly on the KP 211 AF4 Special, aka the Silver God. There are many reasons why the Mafia are able to hold on to power. So this issue just starts off right off the bat with a big bang, showing you the absolute destructive power of this character. This is his first appearance, so you know you had to start it off with a bang. And what I love about his design and stuff, and you might have seen it in an interview with McFarlane, that he took a lot of designs with this, and Stan Lee helping to kind of design this character. There's I forget exactly what the video is, but shout out to my boy Beckerman. He showed me a video one time where Todd McFarlane and Stan Lee were sitting down, and you can actually watch them create this character. So it's an interesting read or watch. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube if you're interested. But like I said, this dude's a monster. He's a gangster. I love him in the Spawn universe. So now we cut back to where we're at with Spawn in his city. And the mob and the mafia and all the crime bosses have been looking to see who's been killing their boys and their employees in the alleyways. So we got 2 of the hitmen, the thugs, kind of asking around, and he's like, you got it, you want it, let's deal. Basically, he's sniffing his nose, talking about drugs and stuff like that. And he's like, you got some of that for me, here's the scoop. And he basically tells them that he's definitely not one of us, he's always hanging by himself. Never says a freaking word, so I was thinking, you got something for me, maybe we can swap goodies. So he says the dude's living over with the old geezers back on 42nd and 6th. He moves around a lot. Basically, we know Spawn hangs out in that alleyway with the homeless people, and they say the boss will be very happy with you. I'm sure he'll send his flowers. And you get a big bang. Basically, they shot the dude. And then it cuts to the mob boss saying, boy, it's obvious there's more than meets our eye with the mystery man, so we shouldn't take him lightly, so we won't. Also, another thing, make sure you suffer before you kill him, then bring me his heart. So basically, he's going to hire somebody to try and get in and handle this thing for Overkill, or for Spawn. So basically, he's going to be hiring Overkill. So we know that the mob, or the mafia, has Hitman kind of trying to figure out where Spawn is. So they're going down alleyways and basically asking homeless man or homeless people what they're, if they know anything or seen anything. And he says, "Excuse me, loser, may I have a word with you?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, a smartass, huh?" And he just basically kills him in cold blood, saying, "This is a riot. A couple more and I guess we can sit back and wait for the Cape dude to show up." How many is this now? 4? 5? But who's counting? And this is another one of my favorite panels from this kind of story. It says, "I'm glad you can laugh at this, Tommy. I've learned a long time ago that you can't take any of this personally. You know what I mean?" And then it shows him, they're walking together and it says, "Yep." And then he's like, you want to go suck down a few beers, relax, you know what I mean?" He's like, "Yep." And then he's basically like, after this job, we'll go back to the boss, report everything's okay, and find us a couple of broads. And then it says, "You up for it?" And one thing I like about Todd McFarlane's early storytelling, and even up until today, is the word bubbles. So when you see a word bubble, it kind of has the kind of Spawn logo outlining it, with a silver line or like a circle or whatever outside of the word bubble. That way you always know Spawn is talking. So I always like that in the comics, and that last yup is actually from Spawn. And he turns around, he's like, "Your friend is dead, it's just you and me, coward. Now I want to know who's after me, and more importantly, why. You know what I mean?" And at the bottom, there's a New York Times that says, "Alley littered with bodies, 2 known felons among the corpses." So basically, they've been going to alleys, killing people, trying to flush out Spawn. Now we get to see all the mob bosses in a meeting, and I love the art style and the over-exaggerated faces and smiles on them. And basically he's like, "For a fair price, I got somebody that we can hire, I can bring him in, we just need to all agree on it." And they're all like, "Whack him, dispose of him, whack him, kill him." So they're all in unanimous decision that they want him gone. So he's already like, "Look, I took the liberty of already hiring a guy named Overkill. That way he will arrive a few days early. He's actually on his way up right now." And the 2 dudes by the elevator are like, "On his way up? What a sense of humor the boss has. I know what you mean, man. I heard the guy's as big as a house. He wouldn't even fit through the door." And then he literally just walks straight through the wall. It says, "Gentlemen may present the solution to our problems." And he's just standing there walking through the wall. So now the mob has hired Overkill to track down Spawn. So I've talked about it before, and we mentioned it, and Todd's mentioned it before in his interviews when he was first doing Spawn, that he very heavily relied on Batman and other characters to kind of get inspiration. And here's one of the key moments, and it says, "Let's see how you deal with death warmed over." Though he knows he's no actor, Al realizes his costume lends an element of fearsomeness. It's not much, but he'll take it. And then he's standing there like, "Show me if you dare." 100% standing there with the Batman silhouette, everything just kind of standing there menacing. And he says, Overkill burst out of wherever he's at and says, "Ha, good one, American. I'm glad to see you weren't afraid to face me. That's admirable." And now they're basically sizing each other down, talking back and forth. Overkill's like, "Don't call me stupid." Spawn says, "I'm not just some drunk hobo that you can steamroll, or are you afraid of someone who can fight back?" So yeah, they're just sizing each other up, just trying to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, as as 2 heroes in the day would have. And then we have this nice 2-page spread where Spawn flicks out his chains and he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "I wasn't even controlling my chains, so I'm not even sure how they just snapped out." But Spawn doesn't realize that his suit and his chains are one in this, or their own mindset, and they can do what they want. And he hasn't really figured out how to control all his powers. So he's like, "Better make it count." Grab too much cape. He's only got a few seconds as Overkill's going to punch him, and you see this big crunch in the thing, and basically Overkill has snapped his arm. So I've talked about it before, and we mentioned it, and Todd's mentioned it before in his interviews when he was first doing Spawn, that he very heavily relied on Batman and other characters to kind of get inspiration. And here's one of the key moments, and it says, "Let's see how you deal with death warmed over." Though he knows he's no actor, Al realizes his costume lends an element of fearsomeness. It's not much, but he'll take it. And then he's standing there like, "Show me if you dare." 100% standing there with the Batman silhouette, everything just kind of standing there menacing. He says, Overkill burst out of wherever he's at and says, "Hi, good one, American. I'm glad to see you weren't afraid to face me. That's admirable." And now they're basically sizing each other down, talking back and forth. Overkill's like, "Don't call me stupid." Spawn says, "I'm not just some drunk hobo that you can steamroll, or are you afraid of someone who can fight back?" So yeah, they're just sizing each other up, just trying to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, as you know, as two, heroes in the day would have. And then we have this nice 2-page spread where Spawn flicks out his chains and he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "I wasn't even controlling my chains, so I'm not even sure how they just snapped out." But Spawn doesn't realize that his suit and his chains are one in this, or their own mindset, and they can do what they want. And he hasn't really figured out how to control all his powers. So he's like, "Better make it count." Grab too much cape. He's only got a few seconds as Overkill's going to punch him, and you see this big crunch in the thing, and basically Overkill has snapped his arm. Overkill standing there with his broken arm. It's basically chopped off. He's holding it in his hand, and Spawn's like, "A cyborg. I fought them years ago before I was killed, but they nearly weren't as advanced nor as deadly." And then Overkill basically is like, "Hey, it's going to be a fair fight now." And then he says, "You're too slow, my friend. Your government must truly be desperate to have made you one of their young blood." And then the young blood is in bold letters. And basically the mob boss has tricked Overkill into thinking Spawn is becoming one of the new members of the Young Bloods, which was another one of Image's early works. So again, he's like, what's he talking about? Because Spawn has no idea. And he's like, "Come on, get up, make my trip to America worth it." Basically just giving Spawn the business. And then he's like, "Come on, fight." I said, "Come on, fight," as he's just basically beating him down. But as we know, Spawn doesn't want to use his powers. He says, "Fight, show me your true strength." And as we know, the power level thing comes into big play here because Spawn does not want to drain that unless he absolutely has to. He's like, "Dead, and I can't even break a sweat." And then Spawn says he must have damaged his external life sensors when his arm shattered. My heartbeat probably wasn't registering. He really could have killed me. Guess I got a lucky break. Now he's like, "Man, now I got to drain more power. Damn." And he basically snaps his arm back. And he's like, "You know what? I'm tired of getting pushed around. I'm tired of getting beaten, especially by some bloody cyborg half-breed." He's like, "It's time I stop running around with my tail between my legs and start using the skills I already have. No need to waste my powers. Didn't have them before. No sense using them as a crutch now." We are left with Spawn standing there with a U.S. Army cache saying, "I'm better than that." He is fully decked out, strapped to the teeth. I love when, even though that Spawn has, all these powers, I love some of the earlier Spawn when he's all strapped up, has the machine guns, the rocket launchers. He is an army man. He was in the military, so it's very fitting for him. So that's where it leaves off with that. And then you do have a little bit of a black and white sketchbook, which shows off all the cover images in black and white. So that's where we're going to leave. I think next week we might jump over to a different character. Again, let me know in comments on any of my videos or any of my story times if there's anything specific you want me to catch. I'm probably going to go with Invincible or maybe something Ghost Machine. That's where I'm leaning to right now. So you guys have a great week. I truly appreciate your time and hanging out with me. I hope to see you Friday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for my Friday Positivity. And then my Sunday night sesh will be at 3 p.m. as an afternoon special, little pregame to the Super Bowl. So I love you guys to death. Stay legendary. And as always, I hope you guys find what you're looking for. Thank you.